Good morning. My name is Mark Talamini, and I have the honor and privilege of introducing to you our SAGES president and my good friend, Steve Eubanks. If I could have the first slide, please. Steve was not born chairman of the Department of Surgery at the University of Missouri-Columbia, although he did take that position at a relatively young age. He was actually born in Guntersville, Alabama, and word has it he was already an assistant professor at the time. He was the recipient of the SAGES 1998 Young Researchers Award, and we mean really young. Everyone in his kindergarten class applauded. Steve was rocking the bow tie and the red blazer here in a pretty nice fashion. By the time he reached 10th grade, Steve was a pretty serious student. He's shown here in the polyester and hairstyle of the day. But he was also a serious athlete in multiple sports. This is a great shot. I think if Coach K from Duke had seen his perfect shooting form, Steve might have opted for a career at Duke basketball rather than pursuing his surgical career, and we would have all lost out. In this action basketball shot, we see two characteristics of Steve's game that we've all come to recognize. Number one, he can mix it up in the paint, and number two, he's a high flyer. I don't know who said white men can't jump, but Steve obviously made it on this. He lettered in 5 total sports in his high school career, just as he has lettered in virtually everything else he has pursued since high school. Steve has been a member of the SAGES Board of Governors since 1997. He has also served on the Finance and Assets Committee, the Program Committees, as well as on the Endoluminal Task Force. It leaves one to wonder when he ever found time for hitting the slopes or having fun. He's also served as first vice president from 2002 to 2004, chair of the Resident Education and Guidelines Committees, co-chair of the Development Committee, and head of the SAGES Alasi Filak postgraduate course on emergency laparoscopy. Despite all of these commitments, Steve actively pursued his vision for serving not just his own community, but the whole world. Here he is seen in France, downing some traditional French cuisine. Steve is also a devoted husband, and perhaps above all else, a devoted husband and a committed family man. Here's Steve and his wife Sandy with the family, and here's a shot of the kids, Alicia, Bethany, and Austin. Steve, I think Austin cannot deny you. That's pretty much a Xerox copy, and that's a great shot of a wonderful family. We all know Steve to be a straight shooter, but he may have been stretching things a bit when this fish weighed in at 197 pounds and 4 ounces. But even with that stretch, that is one big fish that Steve caught. Here's Dad and Alicia enjoying some time on the lakes, proving that he does relax once in a while. Steve has co-authored 7 books, published over 80 journal articles. He serves as an editor for several laparoscopic journals. Along the way, he was the SAGES program chair running a meeting just like this. Steve is also a terrific mentor, and many of our developing leaders are people that he has invested in. Recently, a set of his former fellows and trainees surprised Steve by showing up at the University of Missouri at Columbia unannounced to put on a forum on leadership and mentoring. It couldn't have happened to a more appropriate leader. Steve's areas of interest include GERD, immunologic, physiologic responses to pneumoperitoneum, and effects of laparoscopic surgery on fetal development. I neglected this slide, which really illustrates his mentorship. His work has brought him to the podium in many countries, including Greece, although this countryside tour was after his talk. He has helped strengthen our ties with industry, as illustrated here, as well as with our colleagues in EAES and around the world. I've known Steve a long time. Steve is a man of faith, a man of integrity, and someone who doesn't just talk the talk. He really walks the walk. So it's my great pleasure to present to you my colleague and my good friend, SAGES President Steve Eubanks.
Great job. Thank you very much. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much, Mark, for that that introduction that is not adequately deserved. If I could have the first slide, please. I'd like to talk with you for the next few moments about a world of opportunities. I think it's very apropos because we actually have this session webcast to probably more than 10 sites around the world. Like all lectures, we must begin with disclosures. And I begin with the slide, friends, Roman, and corporate sponsors. Fortunately, our lab coats today do not look like stock car racers with the logo of everyone on site. However, without our corporate sponsors, meetings such as this could not exist. I like to say industry's been very, very good to me over the years. Unfortunately, this is not my home, and they've not been quite that good. I, however, am a founder and major stockholder in a company called Verisense. I have research and education support primarily through fellowship funding through Covidian, Ethicon, Stryker, and Gore. There will be no discussion of products or promotion of companies during this talk today. I embark upon the thank yous with some trepidation because someone will be omitted. And I know that I will omit very important people when I try to say thank you. But I do want to express some appreciation. I've watched a few of these presidential addresses over the years, and I think you are lacking should you not do so. First of all, I must thank my family. While they've benefited in many ways from my career and from opportunities that have been provided to me, they've also generously shared me with SAGES and with other professional opportunities. These are three of the most incredible people I know. And when I see their intellect, I see their wit, it begs the question of who's their real father. But Alicia, Bethany, and Austin, just amazing people. Austin had some parting words for me last night as I spoke with him. He said, "Dad, just imagine that they're all naked." And so 11-year-olds do have a way of looking at things. My parents, I owe a huge debt of gratitude. They are the people who placed within me a foundation of faith, the values, who helped me to understand how the world works and how I should view the world and hopefully be seen by the world. And my grandfather, this picture was taken 15 years ago. Today at 97, he still lives alone independently, but from him I derived a great love for the outdoors, to hunt, to fish. Any wit, humor, or mischief that is within me is derived from his gene pool also. He may be the most mischievous man I've ever met, still at 97. For Sally Matthews, those of us who have the opportunity to serve as program director, to serve as an officer in this organization, know the value of Sally. She is absolutely amazing. She's not an assistant, she is truly a partner. She is an intellectual partner, a work partner. She is a confidant and a friend. I'd like for Sally to stand just for a moment because many of you are not aware this is her 10th anniversary as Executive Director of SAGES. Sally, thank you. The other person I must recognize is Adrian Park, my dear friend, trusted colleague. Over a year ago, I asked Adrian if he would be willing to take on this chore of putting this program together. For me, running the program at SAGES was probably the most time-intensive year that I've ever committed to anything, and I knew it would be a daunting task. Adrian and I share a lot of values, and we sat and we talked about the global impact of this organization. We also talked about innovation and cutting edge and the kind of difference that we should make and how we look at those things so similarly that I knew that this program would be in great hands with Adrian leading. I had no idea it would turn out to be such a high-quality program. Adrian, again, let us recognize you. Please stand so we can show our appreciation. During my residency, many people had an impact on me. George Lucas was my chairman. Titus Duncan and Mac Mason taught me laparoscopic surgery in the early 90s. But those people to the right were my fellow residents. There are others, but these are people from whom I also learned and who we went to war in the trenches together, and they covered my back. I owe a debt of gratitude to them. In 1993, Bill Myers from Duke came and presented grand rounds and asked if I would be willing to come to Duke as the first endosurgery fellow. I thought, why do they want some guy from a community-based program? But I went up and learned that I had more experience at that time than the people at Duke. Over the subsequent years, he and Ted Pappas became my mentors, my teachers, later my partners, and some of my best friends and big brothers in the world of surgery. They truly taught me what academic surgery was all about. Kurt Ludwig joined us at Duke and became one of my closest friends, great partner, and great ally, and we remain very dear friends today. I owe a debt of gratitude to Dr. David C. Savaston. Dr. Savaston had confidence in me to hire me not only as a fellow but also as a member of his faculty when I had absolutely no intent on pursuing academic medicine. But like many others, you do what Dr. Savaston says, not what you want to do. I learned from him many things, but a couple of lessons that meant so much to me was a commitment to excellence and an investment of yourself in the careers of those people who choose to work with you. He spent his life and career promoting those who were his residents and his faculty members. And I have to thank the students and residents, hundreds of students and residents with whom I've had the joy of working over the years and who have taught me to be a teacher. These people mean more to me than anything that shows up on my CV, more than any publication or anything that Mark could talk about that I've done or accomplished. I arrived as the first fellow at Duke, but in the subsequent years, Phil Schauer, Michael Holzman, Carl Westcott, Fred Brody, Ed Chekin, Alex Gansas, Ross McMahon, Sandhya Lagu, Aurora Pryor, and Mark Wilkemeyer all came to work with me as a fellow in that program. And it gives me great joy to watch their growth, to watch what they've accomplished in their careers, and to also to have them as some of my dearest friends. Since moving to Missouri, I've had the opportunity to work with several fellows, including these, Greg Mancini and Sharon Bachman, Zurab Zaratelli, and Matt Fitzer. Wonderful people who are making their own mark. And when you look at this photo, you see those people who had a great influence on me. Of course, there are many others sitting in this audience, but people like John Hunter and Nat Soper, Lee Swanstrom, Dan DeZille, Jeff Peters, Bruce Shermer. These are the guys who were a few years ahead of me in career, and I've looked to them as role models throughout my career. I've looked to those people like Joe Beisky and Jerry Freed more as contemporaries, and we've grown together in this organization. And these are the people who've helped shape my understanding of what we should do in terms of our commitment to such an organization. We have many opportunities today, and one of those opportunities in a career as a surgeon and as a SAGES member is to really see the world. As we attend SAGES meetings and we sit here in cities such as Philadelphia, or we go next year to Arizona, we move to New York for meetings and around the world, we're exposed to things that otherwise in other careers we might never see and never visit. And as I sit here today and I think about those opportunities that have been presented to me, now more than 20 times I've had opportunities to visit South America with a dozen trips to Buenos Aires and to outlying regions of Argentina. And through that to come to know parts of the world and a way of life and a way of seeing the world very different from that I knew as a child in Alabama. Some of this international travel began with a trip to Russia in 1993 to teach laparoscopic cholecystectomy and lap hernia repair in St. Petersburg. And then only about 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to visit China, not only to teach and lecture or to operate with friends there, but to learn so much from people who have huge volumes with their experience in surgery, and also to learn so much culturally about a different way of life. Today, I live in Columbia, Missouri, a part of the world that was also foreign to me until about 5 years ago. I'd never visited that area, but now live in a wonderful place and work with a great group of people. Next slide, please. In my trips to Argentina, Juan Picol has become one of my dearest and closest friends, and he's introduced me to a different world. I've come to love that country. I love South America, but on every trip, Juan has been my friend and my guide as we've traveled together, and we've shared a lot of life's experiences. I had the opportunity to visit Patagonia with David Ratner, who's also been one of my mentors and role models, and had a wonderful time there with Juan. And when I visit Ecuador, to make friends like Juan Serrano and Esteban Moscoso, or to Brazil with Ricardo Cohen and Jose Pinheiro, tremendous people who have impacted my life in a great way. When I visited Russia in 1993 to teach laparoscopic cholecystectomy, I had no idea at that time that my translator, a Russian resident, would 5 years later be living in my home, and then 15 years later would be standing over me performing my cardiac catheterization as my personal cardiologist. These relationships and these ties take turns that we never expect. In China, tremendous opportunities. I saw parts of the world in a way of life that I had never envisioned and became close friends with Dr. Wong and Dr. Liu. Through SAGES, we have many international opportunities. This past year, we've placed a great deal of emphasis and focus on our global initiative. And in that global initiative, we like to take what we do to developing parts of the world. We go into areas less fortunate than the U.S., and try to teach, to try to equip those surgeons so that they can take minimally invasive surgery and share it with their surrounding surgeons and grow up a population of well-equipped, well-trained surgeons. But furthermore, we go into the world to learn. There are parts of the world that are far advanced. There are some who are paralleling the U.S. in what they're accomplishing, but there are other parts where we have been surpassed, and more novel techniques, more innovation are taking place. And we've made a concerted effort to align ourselves with those groups of people to go and learn from them and bring back to this country and to this organization those lessons that we can learn. Furthermore, I think when we have exchanges such as this, we gain a broader understanding of the world and many times even a broader understanding of ourselves. But most importantly, those friendships and those relationships are what will endure. We have many opportunities where we live and work. We're all surrounded by opportunities to alleviate pain and suffering. One need look no further than the nightly news or the newspaper to see evidence of devastation, of great pain. But many times when we see these images, we're numb to them. We actually are immune to the effect because we don't have a personal face that we place upon it, or perhaps it occurs in a part of the world that we've never visited. But when we are out there developing relationships with people in these parts of the world, these images become very real and very tangible to us. Opportunities to alleviate suffering abound, and there are many, many ways in which we can have that type of impact. Sometimes that suffering hits much closer to home, and most of us were affected to one degree or another by the flooding of Katrina and the impact on the city of New Orleans. Admittedly, there are times that the priorities of those in need may not parallel our priorities in helping, although a couple of my residents might agree with saving as much beer as possible, as is demonstrated here. But each time we go to the bedside, we have that opportunity to alleviate suffering. And we must keep in mind that many times those patients who present to our clinic or to our hospitals have things that are hurting much, much worse than the physical symptoms of perhaps a gallbladder or a hernia, and we have opportunities to address those needs as well. I do work in a wonderful place, a beautiful, safe community, and I have the opportunity to lead a department of surgery with amazing people, brilliant surgeons, hardworking, energetic residents, and it's a tremendous opportunity. But each day as I go to work, there are many of those people who come and sit in my office and talk about their own personal pains and sufferings, broken relationships, difficulties at home, problems with children. And so we are provided with opportunities wherever we go to address those sufferings and those difficulties. I am surrounded by great people. Bruce Ramshaw runs general surgery for me at the university. He was a fellow resident, a tremendous friend for now going on 20 years, and a great leader. But to have people like Nicole Fearing and Archana Ramaswamy, Sharon Bachman, to have nurses like Deb Buckman and Nicole Andrews to support what we do makes life so much richer and so much fuller. And I get to be part of one of the most amazing teams of minimally invasive surgeons that I know of anywhere in the world. This is our MIS team, and they're having people who are attending this meeting like Klaus Thaler and Roger Delatorre and Brent Miedema as partners is so much better than when I tried to do so much alone during my days at Duke. We have opportunities to serve, and in a society such as SAGES, those opportunities are great. For the young surgeons in the audience, and there are many of you, currently there are approximately 1,000 people as members of SAGES who are in the first 5 years of your career. This is a home for you. We have a deep and undying commitment to provide a societal home where you can actually be a tangible participant very early in your career, be it from the podium, the poster session, or on a committee. We want to give you an environment where your career will develop and you will be encouraged and fostered. In a society such as this, in order for us to optimally access the opportunities around us, we need a clear vision of our identity. And what are we about? We're about education, training, innovation, research, and collaboration. But as characteristics of society, we're collegial. The leaders are accessible. It's a creative group of people, and I know of no more accomplished group of people. And finally, it's a very fun group of people, as seen at the recent leadership retreat. Currently, we have more than 6,000 members in this society. More than 2,400 people attended last year's meeting in Las Vegas, and more than 60 countries were represented. But also as individuals, not just as a society, we need a clear sense of identity and purpose. We must all on occasion pause to ask, why am I on this earth? Why did I receive the abilities and intellect that I possessed? What will I see? as a result of my efforts when I reflect back on this life? And did my years of sleepless nights and 20-hour days truly make a difference? Sir Edmund Hillary recently passed away, considered by many to be a true hero. He was the first man to reach the summit of Mount Everest in 1953, knighted Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Originally from New Zealand, a simple man, a beekeeper, but in his life he established 27 schools, built 2 hospitals and a dozen medical clinics, constructed several airfields, many bridges, rebuilt monasteries and cultural centers, and planted over 1 million trees. And here you see him in his early days building in the Himalayas. He said, when I look back over my life, though, I have little doubt that the most worthwhile things I've done have not been getting to the summits of great mountains or to the extremes of the earth. My most important projects have been the building and maintaining of schools and medical clinics for my dear friends in the Himalaya, and helping restore their beautiful monasteries, too. But he did it with humility, and when he learned that he would be knighted by Queen Elizabeth, his response was, "Oh, I found it difficult. I didn't feel I was the ideal sort of person who should have a title. My God," he remembers saying to himself, "I'll have to buy a new pair of overalls." We have to have confidence in who we are, in our abilities and what we can do, but we also need to do it without arrogance. We need to do it with a sense of humility. Many times our perspective of self is very different from how we're seen by others. We as surgeons like to think of ourselves as the great conquerors and healers, stamping out disease and death. Many times we're more like these superheroes. Digital camera $600, boys' underwear $4, not telling your cousin his mask has a skid mark, priceless. Or sometimes we just absolutely do not see ourselves as we really are and make very poor judgment. Rudyard Kipling, speaking to medical students in 1908, said the world has long ago decided that you have no working hours that anyone is bound to respect, and nothing except extreme bodily illness will excuse you in its eyes from refusing to help a man who thinks he may need your help at any hour of the day or night. Nobody will care whether you're in your bed or in your bath or on your holiday or at the theater. Voltaire was a bit more harsh with us by saying that doctors are men who prescribe medicine of which they know little to cure diseases of which they know less, and human beings of which they know nothing. I recently heard lectures by Michael Holzman and another by Dr. Richardson from Louisville talking about some of the changes in what's taking place in our profession and how we truly have suffered a loss of professionalism. During Dr. Richardson's lecture, one of my friends leaned over to me and he said, "You know, professionalism's a lot like pornography. Both are hard to define, but you definitely know it when you see it." At other times, the world sees us in a great way. Jane Austen said that a doctor is a sort of wonderful nondescript creature on 2 legs, something between a man and an angel, and we are held in high regard by much of society. And at times, by our family, we also get to play the role of hero. We also have many opportunities to enjoy great things in life, whether it's trips, whether it's conversations and friendships, or those things about which we are so passionate, or spending time with the people who mean so much to us. We also, in this organization, unlike so many places, we have the opportunity to invent, to design, to innovate. We are writing the history of our profession in this area, be it in notes, be it in minimally invasive surgery. Those books have not yet been completed, and we have that opportunity to make a tremendous impact. For that purpose, we created a biodesign and innovation program at our place where we have substantive relationships between surgeons and engineers, and we have a fellowship program where we teach people to take concepts from napkin to market, much as Tom Crummell has done at Stanford and we'll talk about tomorrow. And here you see our fellows. We have a surgeon, an engineer, and a business person together, Naral Shah, Shashanka Asholi, and Tara Holdeman there in the operating room with me while they're addressing needs in the clinical environment. And needs are often synonymous with opportunities. Those things that defy logic, annoy or infuriate us, or demand a better solution actually should be viewed by us as opportunities. Today, more than ever, there are many avenues that one can take to use your gifts, training, and skills. Academic medicine, private practice, mission work, humanitarian organizations, administration, or industry roles are but a few of the choices that we have before us. There are obstacles to seizing these opportunities. And many times we do face disappointments and find the world's not as we expected it to be. Thomas Jefferson in 1785 said, "I've always found it best to remove obstacles first." In 1811, however, he said, "We are bound down by the laws of our situation. And admittedly, there are days I awake and feel that I've awakened in the land of the Lilliputians and I am bound down like Gulliver in every regard. But then I think, how small are those obstacles? Here you see my fellow chief resident, Lucian Newman, who just a few years ago, or about 2 years ago, I was visiting with him. And this is one of 7 operations I saw him perform that day, finished by 2 o'clock, and then we went to the golf course later. What you can't recognize in this photo is that Lucian's actually performing those operations while wearing a Utah 3 prosthesis on his left arm after having an above-elbow amputation from a hunting accident. Quite an obstacle to most of us, but he didn't go on disability and quit what he was doing. He showed up to work as soon as he was allowed to do so, and then just recently won a national golf tournament. As from the back tees, he's a scratch golfer now with one arm. The world in which we live and work is a whitewater world. There are going to be many changes. For most of us, fortunately, it won't mean amputation and having to adapt to things such as that. But we are in a constantly changing environment. The ride can be a bit rough at times, and some choose to simply get up and walk away because the ride is too rough. However, hopefully we're going to learn to embrace that ride, to love the rapids, to love the challenges, and to conquer those obstacles. We can't be spectators. Roosevelt said it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man in the arena whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who have never known neither victory nor defeat. We must not be afraid to think big. Likewise, we must not fear criticism when we act upon our vision to accomplish good. The boundaries of our country, sir? Why, sir, on the north we're bounded by the aurora borealis. On the east, bounded by the rising sun. On the south, we're bounded by the precession of the equinoxes. And on the west, by the day of judgment. We must think big. Sorry, I need to go back one slide, please. Elbert Hubbard said, "The man who is anybody and who does anything is surely going to be criticized, vilified, and misunderstood. That is part of the penalty for greatness, and every great man understands it and understands, too, that it is no proof of greatness. The final proof of greatness lies in being able to endure continuously without resentment." I hope when we take that final walk and reflect upon our lives and we will know that we recognized and seized this world of opportunities, and that because of us as individuals and because of us as a great surgical society, the lives of those around us and the world will have been changed for the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve, for those words of wisdom and challenging words. I'd like to present to you a plaque in commemoration of your presidential year. It says, "In periods where there is no leadership, society stands still. Progress occurs when courageous, skillful leaders seize the opportunity to change things for the better," a quote from Harry Truman. With gratitude for your leadership of SAGES, presented to Steve Eubanks, President, April 2007 to April 2008. Congratulations.